Hey guys, today we're going to talk about fishing offshore. Um, Talking big football jigs, big worms, swim baits, big spoons. There's lots of different baits, crankbaits. But the main thing is we spend a lot of time just idling offshore structure, rock piles, shell beds, points, humps, any kind of structure that is a change, a pretty drastic change in depth. Got a good, clean, hard bottom. And then if it's got some cover on it, vegetation, wood, stumps, that kind of stuff, that makes it even a little bit better. So what we're gonna do here, we're gonna idle around out here. We've had a school located for a few weeks. We're gonna idle around up and down this ledge until we figure out exactly how they're orientated on it today. These fish tend to move around because they're moving around with the bait. So we're gonna get up here and throw a football jig and see if that works for a little bit. So stay tuned with us and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so we're gonna focus on this video fishing offshore with football jigs. And the biggest key to that is scanning. We use Lowrance HDS Gen 2 units with structure scan. We're using the new HD structure scan. It's phenomenal, the images that you get here. You'll see on these side scan, down scan, and sonar, it kind of gives you a representation of what these schools of bass kind of look like on the screen. You're basically looking for them in horizontal bands. This school we went over it a couple times to kind of get a layout and then through a marker buoy. But I'm going to flash back to some footage here. This is fishing a football jig offshore. This is in a school we found earlier in the year, probably about 4 weeks ago. What was interesting about this is there was one hard, clean part of the bottom that rose up as basically a hump out near a main river ledge. And what we found was these fish would aggressively bite the jig, but they wouldn't hold on to it. Like if you reeled back to set the hook, you'd miss them. But what you noticed right there, I set the hook on a fish and missed it. And when you got these fish grouped up in these big schools, you don't reel up after you miss a fish. You let the jig sink back down. Basically, when I'm fishing a football jig offshore, it's basically two retrieves. It's either dragging it on the bottom or it's stroking it, ripping the jig up off the bottom. And so when you set the hook and miss one, it's just like stroking a jig. And a lot of times that really fires up a fish. All of a sudden he reaches down there to bite it, you snatch it away from him, either that fish or another fish that was watching will aggressively attack it. So that's kind of what happened there. But for the most part, I'm using a 3/4 ounce jig, 15-pound fluorocarbon, 7-foot medium heavy action rod, and it's long cast as I can make. And then it's like fishing a Carolina rig. It's sideways sweeps of the rod. I'm just barely dragging along. I want to feel it on the bottom the whole time when I'm doing the drag like that. And I never want to go too far back because, like I said, when they bite, you've got to set into them immediately. So if you're way back on a drag and you've got no room to set the hook, see how I just real quick there react to the bite and set into them. It seems like when those fish first got out there, they were aggressively hitting the jig, but if you didn't set the hook on them the instant they bit, you missed them. And so you had to kind of be on guard, almost tensed up, ready to uncoil on them whenever they would bite. So, but there's several fish catches here, and one fish we lost. And for the most part, one of the reasons I really like a football jig, it seems like when you stick a fish, you've got them. That weed guard almost acts like a keeper to hold the jig in the fish's mouth. And, so if you get a good hook set, which is part of using that 15-pound fluorocarbon and a medium heavy action rod, you can really drive a hook even on a long cast in deep water. But once you've found these places, it's what we found is there seems to be lineups. There's an angle that you want to come across the sweet spot on, and for the life of me, I can't explain it. Maybe it's the way the current washes bait up. Maybe the fish are just trained to face a direction because of how the cover lays on the structure. you know, for whatever the reason, it always seems like there is a one certain way to really line up on a spot. So usually when I pull up and I find a school bass on a spot, I'll fish around and see where I get a bite, and then I'll try to duplicate that and see if there's something to that certain cast I made. See if I can just keep making that same cast over and over and over. A lot of times when I get a bite, I'll throw a buoy again. Oh no, here comes the lost fish. Doe. That's painful. That was probably the best fish we had that day too. But no, once you make that right lineup, you just want to keep trying to make that same cast, and I'll throw either a buoy or I'll throw down another waypoint that kind of lets me know, okay, this is where I need to hold my boat, and then this is the direction I need to throw. We'll take a look at a couple more fish catches here, and we'll have more about finding these fish offshore. We'll do a video on stroking a jig. We'll talk more about fishing offshore with different baits, you know, the big worm, swim baits, crankbaits, and a host of other baits. So stay tuned. More fish catches and more videos from Wire to Fish. Nice fish. There it is right there on the football jig. Gotta like it, that's a chunk. Man, what a fish. Good gut. Been feeding up. Thank you, buddy.
There's a look, feel, and legacy with no equal. Packed with features, it's your license to lead. Experience the legendary performance of the Ranger Z500 and Z100 series. Combined with the power and accelerated performance of Mercury outboards, these designs are built to excel. The Ranger Z500 and 100 series. One goal, one standard, one passion. Perfection. Mercury outboards, #1 on the water.